Hi guys, it's Audrey Meyer here. I'm here with Dan Brule, and I'm very excited because we're going to talk about find your superpower, get hack your body and mind to become unstoppable. So I don't know if you guys been following the previous video, the previous speakers, or if this is your first interview, but we are going to give you so much tips and tools. This way you can boost your level of performance and you can reclaim your life. So this is an amazing project. I have been working probably for the last 25 years as a professional extreme sport athlete, but also as a coach. So thank you guys for following us. And today I'd like to welcome Dan Brule. Do I say it right? Dan Brule?
Yeah, Brule, that's it. Yep.
Welcome, Dan. Thank you so much for being here with us. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you. It's fun to be here.
So Dan, can you tell us a little bit about who is Dan Brule? I know you've been doing so much and you're pretty impressive. So tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, I raised a Catholic boy in New Bedford, Massachusetts, and got turned on to the breath in a very early age, kindergarten, first grade, when the priest would talk about how in the first book of Genesis, how God formed the body of man from the dust of the earth and breathed into the nostrils of man the breath of life. As a little child, that was the most exciting thing I had ever heard. It was like, wow, God is breathing into us. I was like, holy cow, why isn't everybody excited? And then throughout my life, life kept sticking my nose back into the breath. Getting the wind knocked out of me on the playground and near drowning experiences. And my first job was as an X-ray technician. And one of the easiest X-rays to take is a chest X-ray. So as a student, I got the chest X-rays. And when you take a chest X-ray, you tell the person, taking a deep breath, hold it, and then click, you take the picture. And as I gave those same instructions to a couple of thousand people over the next year or two, I noticed everybody did something different. The look on their face, the muscles they used, what they felt was a full breath, what they went through to accomplish it. And it started to feel like the breath was just talking to me and speaking to me. And then in the military, I was a medical person. I was a deep sea diver. I was mixing gases for deep sea diving. I was doing underwater rescue. We were practicing breath holding. And so, everything, I couldn't escape the breath. No matter where I turned, I couldn't escape the breath. And so when I got out of the military, I went east, and yoga and meditation and Taoist practices in China. I went to China and Qigong and looking for the roots of all of the breathing traditions. And then my game was to kind of westernize them, to peel away the woo-woo stuff and, the dogma and the rituals around whatever, every spiritual tradition touches on the breath. And so I was trying to get to the essence of these breathing practices, whether it's Christian or Buddhist or Islamic or Taoist or Confucian, and so that's been my thing. And 40 years ago, when I was in the military, it was like crying from the rooftops, a voice crying out in the desert. They go, oh, breathing, schmeating, what's the big deal? We all breathe, And so it's nice that now the science is caught up and we can see why certain yogic practices and certain martial art practices and disciplines, now we're starting to see the science behind them. So that's why this works. So that's been kind of like my mission. I'm a missionary for the breath. And, it's my passion, pass I on. It's my profession, profess I on. And I basically, because of just stupid, stubbornness, I refused to do anything else for the last 40 years. I've never had a regular job, that I become kind of an expert, an authority on breathing. And I'm kind of a pioneer. It's not my mission in life to pass on a tradition. I'm more of a disruptor. I'm more of I'm unconventional. I like creating things. And so, you know, like Tony calls me the Bruce Lee of breathing. My friends in Australia call me the Yoda of breathing. You know, my friends in Europe call me the Godfather of breathing. I guess when you've just been doing something and you keep showing up, after a while, it's hard to avoid me, you know? And so I'm a student of the breath, and I'm a big believer that we are capable of superhuman abilities. And we all have that. And how do we access that? And so the synopsis of my book, Just Breathe, is that all of the high states and the extraordinary abilities that once was reserved just for the great masters and the gurus and the saints and the ancient warriors, those same states and those same extraordinary abilities are accessible to anybody. And I think through the breath, that's a key that unlocks a lot of our inner potential. So yeah, and that's what my life is about. What is the maximum potential in this moment? What is our ultimate potential? And what does optimum health look like? So, and I think anyone interested in any of those paths, you're going to bump into the breathing. You can't get around it.
I love it. And I definitely felt your passion. I follow your class Saturday when we were all together online, right, on Zoom. And I felt the passion and the professionalism. And it was just amazing. I felt the energy of everyone. And as a professional athlete, I can feel the huge benefit of it, right? It's like we're talking nutrition, we're talking workout, we're talking drink healthy. But for many years, I never heard about breath, right? Why should I work on my breath? I breathe since my childhood, so I didn't need to work on that. But once I get to meet people and talk like you and show me and explain me and doing this work exercise, I'm like, wow, my life is so much better. I can improve my physical capacity, my mental capacity, my life, right? And I don't need to be, everyone can do that. And it's free breathing, right? Which is the most amazing.
And you know, as an athlete, you notice that when you get to the edge of your end of your rope, it's not your body or your muscles so much that are failing. It's your breathing that you can't maintain and keep up. And so, you know, I have a friend, Mark Devine, Navy SEALs, you know, a commander who, you know, I mean, if you're dropped down in the middle of who knows what, you jump out of a helicopter and you find yourself in the middle of chaos and nothing is the way you planned it. And all the intel was wrong. And now you're surrounded by 100, you know, hostile foreigners. What do? Do you curl up in a ball? Do you call your mother? Do you reach for your radio? Do you reach for your gun? No, you get a handle on your breath. Because when you get a handle on your breath, you can manage your arousal. You can manage your emotions. You can manage your energy. You can manage your mental state. And breathing is a behavior. Breathing is a behavior. So when you combine respiratory physiology with the behavioral sciences, you have this really amazing model for health, wellness, fitness, performance. And so we got to remember that breathing is a behavior. And maybe the way you're breathing is making your body think it's in danger. Or maybe the way that you're breathing is knocking your chemistry out of balance and getting in the way of your performance. Or maybe the way you're breathing is bringing up certain emotional tendencies and psychological tendencies. Because every psychological state, every emotional state, every physiological state has a corresponding breathing pattern or corresponding a quality of breath. And when your emotional state, your psychological state changes, your breathing pattern changes. And it's a two-way street. We've learned that when you control your breathing, you can control all that other stuff and control a lot of things that up until recently we thought, hey, that's out of our realm. Blood pressure, skin temperature, all kinds of things that we used to just think, well, there's nothing we can do about that stuff. It's all automatic. No, we can hack into our nervous system. We can hack into our immune system. We can hack into our subconscious mind and clear away limiting beliefs and early programming and conditioning. And so the breath is this powerful tool for transformation. And it's exciting that what we are capable of, you know, humans are the only species on this planet that can be unnatural. You know, we can be inhuman. A dog cannot be an undog. A tree cannot be a non-tree. But a human can be inhuman, can be unnatural. And for me, that's the second side of that two-edged sword. If we can be unnatural, we can be supernatural. If we can be inhuman, we can be superhuman. And which way do you want to lean? And maybe together with the breath, we can achieve some extraordinary states of consciousness, extraordinary levels of awareness, and extraordinary levels of performance.
I love it. I love everything you said. So can you go a little deeper in what are you calling breath work? Because everybody thinks like, oh, I know breathing. I know how to breathe, right? I breathe 24/7 since I'm born. So how do you define what is breath work?
Well, breath work for me, breath work it's composed of using breath awareness and conscious breathing. So breath work is about becoming aware of your breathing in certain times, in certain situations, in certain circumstances. When somebody is insulting me, I should be aware of my breath and what's happening to my breath while I'm being insulted, or what's happening to my breath when I'm stuck on a math problem, or what's happening to my breath when I'm listening to music, or what's happening to my breath when I'm stuck in traffic, or what's happening to my breath when I'm in pain. What's happening to my breath when I'm afraid? Most people are not aware of their breathing in those moments, and they're missing a key to get through those moments. And so just the practice of becoming aware of your breathing, noticing your breath, and doing it as a meditative practice every day, where you just sit, you don't breathe in any special way, you simply observe your breathing, become intimate with your breath, track the breathing moment to moment, the sensations of breath, the movements of breath, as a meditative practice. So that's breath awareness, and that's the first part of breath work. The more aware I become of my breath, the more aware I am of my posture, the more aware I am of my reactions, the more aware I am of my emotions, aware of my thoughts, I'm more aware of feelings and sensations in my body. So breath awareness leads to a greater awareness of being, of functioning and operation. So that's the first piece of breath work, and it's a passive practice because the breath is already coming and going and you don't have to do anything. You just want to be like the Buddha. You want to be the witness of the breath. That's the essence of the Buddha, is the witness. And when we can witness the breath, it's as if we stand apart. The word ecstasy, ecstasis, to stand apart. When we can stand apart of our thinking, of our behaviors, we're witnessing. We are in the state that you could call ecstasy. So the breath is a way to enter these really sublime states. But it begins with awareness, noticing how you're breathing in different moments. And that leads to the second part of breath work, which we call conscious breathing. This is the active part. This is where you come in. In the first part, breath awareness, the breath is breathing you. The breath is breathing itself. Nature is breathing your body. Conscious breathing is where we step in and take over. We breathe with a certain pattern. We breathe with a certain intention. We regulate the breath. We control the breath. We manage the breath in order to manage those things I mentioned earlier, our mental state, our emotional state, our arousal, our physiology. So that's breath work. It's a combination of breath awareness and conscious breathing. And the way I teach, we go back and forth between those two skills and we keep ramping them up. And so far we haven't found any limits to what's possible.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm sitting here listening to Dan Brule, which I'm a big fan, and I'm like, okay, breathe. Right? Everyone should okay, guys, everyone just take a deep breath. I feel good.
You see, that's right. When we are speaking, look at public speakers. So right now I'm speaking, I'm talking, but what I'm actually doing is exhaling. And this is quite a long exhale. It's been going on for quite a while. And now I'll talk some more. And now it's been 1 second and 2 seconds and 3 seconds. And this is a longer exhale, a longer exhale, a longer exhale. And so that's an example of behavior. So right now I'm using my breathing to communicate. And so if you were to monitor my breath and take it out of context and just look at my breathing pattern, it would be chaotic. I would stop, I would start. Sometimes the exhale would be very long. Sometimes the inhale would be slow. Sometimes I would stop. And if you looked at that, you go, wow, that's chaotic breathing. That can't be healthy for my chemistry. But then when you realize, oh, we're using my breath in the same way I'm using my hands to communicate, so it's serving me on one level, but it might be causing dysfunction on another. So when I get afraid, for example, I have to go on stage. If I become tense, I'm obstructing my breathing. I'm holding my breath. And so I'm disrupting my nature. And we need to be able to get back in, step in, and create balance and create order. And that's what breath work is about.
I love it. So Dan, I know there's been a couple methods, different method out there, a different approach. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, there are thousands of breathing exercises and techniques out there. And now, thank God, there are thousands of breathing schools and breathing styles and breathing approaches and breathing methods. You know, breath work is the new yoga. And suddenly everybody's teaching breathing. You know, you go to one seminar for a weekend and you have this amazing experience, and now you're teaching other people, which is a beautiful thing. But very often we can get hooked on a particular teacher or style or method, and then we're like an artist and we have one color on our palette. And yeah, okay, there are many hues and shades and of that one color, but don't you want a lot of colors on your palette if you're a real artist? So my approach is to study all of the breathing methods and styles, and what are the universal fundamentals, and what can I take from each method or school or style, and then combine that with my own natural propensity and my own natural abilities and create a unique approach. And that's what I try to encourage other people to do, because two people can practice the same exact breathing pattern. For example, inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. That's box breathing, by the way. It's used special forces, first responders, military people. It's a great way to balance your nervous system. But how I go about doing that is just as important as the thing I'm doing. So, you know, I could say, okay, breathe in for 6 and hold for 8 and exhale for 12. Now, two people could practice that, and one person could get a tremendous amount of benefit, and the other person, it gives them a headache, or they get dizzy, or whatever. So there's this aspect in breath work, and that is our creative ability. Our consciousness is a wild card in this. So two people could practice opposite breathing techniques and produce the same result. And two people can practice the same breathing technique and get opposite results. So that means we need to be our own scientists. You need to learn how to listen to your body. You need to learn how to pay attention. You breathe in a certain way, and then you meditate. Okay, what happened inside of me? And then you breathe in another way and you meditate. Okay, what did that do? And we have to be, you know, inching forward on our own, trusting our own resources. And that doesn't mean that we don't listen to a good coach and we don't take advantage of ancient schools, which can save us a lot of time and energy. I mean, in the East, in India and China, you know, breathing is a science. It's a relatively new practice in the West. You know, we're not a contemplative, meditative society or culture. And so we can take from those other cultures, put together our wild, Western, aggressive, independent kind of thing, and combining those things, and we can achieve something that you can't do with either of those approaches. So,
yeah,
you know, we have to integrate East and West, spiritual, material, scientific, and intuitive. I mean, that's the game, I think, of optimum health and peak performance and ultimate potential.
yeah.
Make use of the science, but develop your intuition.
Right. And I know you've been working with a lot of famous people, right? Some athletes, some military, some speakers. You're welcome to name a couple. I know the list is long. But what are the highest application or use of the breath work?
Wow, you're going right to my heart. What is the highest application? Yeah, because you want to get rid of headaches, you can learn breathing exercise techniques to do that. You want to lower your blood pressure or raise your blood pressure, you can practice techniques for doing that. But what's the maximum potential? What's the highest application? That's what I'm after. And for example, you mentioned, I mean, I do. I've worked with Olympic athletes, you know, Tony Robbins, you know, a lot of people at really peak performance, let's say in the 1%. And actually that began in my own life as kind of my own research. I was an X-ray technician at New England Medical Center. At the time it was Boston City Hospital and University Hospital. And a very famous at the time surgeon was visiting, training other surgeons to do a particular orthopedic process. And he was training all the other surgeons, and he worked for the company that did hip nailings. They manufactured the pins you put in when a person fractures the hip. So that was kind of the technology in 1970. It was new, it was wild. And when I got the news that this surgeon was coming to the hospital, and I looked at the mood and the attitude of all the surgeons, they were like giddy children, like Santa Claus was coming, like the Pope was visiting, like, oh my God, who is this guy that everybody in the hospital is so freaking excited about? And so when I met him, he was the first person I met that had like a palpable charisma. He had an aura about him. He had elegance, he had poise, he had grace, he had certainty, he had confidence. And it was catchy. You couldn't help but feel it and sense it in him. And he was compelling. His presence was compelling. And I noticed his breathing. And his breathing was a perfect expression of the rest of him. He was elegant. And when you looked at his breathing, the best way to describe his breathing, it was elegant. And so I said, okay, here's a guy in a 1%. He's the best in the world at this particular thing. He obviously has a different quality of breathing. He breathes different than other people. And when I had a conversation with him, he said, oh yeah, I practice breathing because I was a public speaker. And I'm in groups and I stage fright. And so I use my breath, I control my breathing to get focused. And so he was a guy who was using his breath. He was conscious of his breath. He was breathing, or he was aware of his breath in times when other people weren't. And I said, is this part of, it was a question, is this why he's become so great? Because he has a certain relationship to his breath. So that set me off on a journey. I wanted to meet the best musicians, the best politicians, the wealthiest people, the greatest whatever, and to see if they're not more conscious of their breathing than the average person, if they don't have more healthier breathing patterns. And I found no exceptions to that. It's actually directly linked. So the experiment for me is over. I know. I don't have the luxury of doubt anymore. I met Indira Gandhi, the Prime Minister of India, in 1980. And there was another example, this just amazing woman with presence and charisma, and her breath was so delicate. And yet when she got excited, her breathing lit up like a child. And when she was focused, her breath became like a laser. It became slow and focused. And when she was reading documents that brought up nothing in her, her breathing was stable. And I started to see, wow, she was looking through documents and signing them. And I could tell what was going on inside of her. I could tell what she was reading by the way her breathing reacted. If it was something I felt like it was a compromise. She was giving something away to get something. And it was like, you could see there was conflict in her breathing. So, for me, the game is, how do we link breathing patterns to performance, and how do we link performance to breathing patterns? And and where are these direct links, and where can we step in and make a difference? So, and if you look to high performers, peak performers, they know how to make a little adjustment and parlay that into a huge advantage. Like Tony Robbins is a good example. I coach Tony Robbins. And so if I teach him a technique, and in 15 minutes he's practicing it and he lowers his blood pressure, like, holy cow, he has to pull somebody into the room immediately and teach them. He can't contain this knowledge. He's got to share it. And so I like working with those kind of people, seasoned martial artists whose ego has been long gone beat up, and they have a lot of chi and a lot of energy. And so one of my lessons, and one of the things I teach, is that if you can break a brick, you can mend a bone. If you can throw somebody to the ground, you can build up their immune system. It's the same energy. We're just working with it differently. So that's why I like to work with peak performers and seasoned martial artists and people who've achieved excellence, because I just make a little adjustment in their breathing and it has a huge difference. Whereas when you're working with somebody who's not conscious, not productive, really got to work to get them to make big changes in their breathing, that then they can see changes in their life and their work and their art and so on. So I love working with everybody across a spectrum, but I feel like people get more from my time and who I am if they already have a practice, if they're already interested in this stuff. I don't mind trying to convince people that it's important, that it's valuable. But if you don't already know it, well, here's another seminar. Know it and then come to me, okay?
Yeah.
So, yeah, so that's my life.
I love it. And you know what, Dan? I wish today, with what's going on in the world, right? Because right now in coronavirus, everybody's stuck at home. There's so much fear out there. So I wish like everyone is listening to us today, right? And everyone just take the breath seriously and learn about that. I mean, the world would just be such a better place, right? I have goosebumps when I'm saying that.
Yeah.
And
Well, people think breathing is too simple. It's too obvious. It's like, oh yeah, but the simple things are always the most powerful. The most basic things that we all underestimate and we overlook always turn out to be the most powerful. And so breathing is the quintessential example of something that's right under your nose and it's extremely powerful, and you're looking around for answers and solutions and you're overlooking the most obvious powerful thing. And so some of us need to be shaken a little bit or seduced or cajoled or somehow, made to look in that direction, And so, yeah, it's kind of fun.
plus on the top of it, it's free, right? We don't have to buy some gadget or some tools to use it. It's like we already have it, right? So I love
I've been, companies send me these, resistance masks and resistance breathing devices, $50, $100. And I say, go to McDonald's and get a straw. It's free. And you create resistance when you breathe, okay? But it's kind of cool to, have a cool mask and high-tech stuff and everything. And when you combine high-tech stuff with good, intuitive, when you're in touch with your body and you're conscious in the moment, and then you combine the high-tech stuff, wow, then you really get somewhere.
Yeah, so true. Dan, you're just so passionate about what you're doing. I love it. And I know you have a very generous gift for the audience. So the link will be below the interview. Can you just tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, a while back I forget what the event was, it was so long ago, but we created a package and it was at the time, it was like the 5 most popular seminar recordings, information products that we had. One of them is my book, Just Breathe. It was my first book. It was an ebook, self-published. Now this book, Just Breathe, is Simon & Schuster, so I have the Queen Mary of publishers, But that book, Shut Up and Breathe, it comes with 2 audio CDs and a DVD. And then I have another file called Tantra and Breathwork. Everybody's interested in sex. Everybody's interested in juicy stuff. And so Tantra is an ancient tradition. I've kind of westernized the approach in using breathing in that field. That's a really fun product. Another one is this, we call the Baja Download. It's Breathwork in the Prana Gardens. I had some volunteer workers here for 2 months when we were building, and I promised them a seminar. So we recorded it here. And there were like about 15 people. And that particular file contains a lot of specific coaching because as I'm moving around the room and I'm speaking to everyone, but I'm cueing off of each person's process. So that's been a really rich file. Everybody really loves it. And then another one is stress and burnout and prevention, stress and burnout prevention, which is, that's a huge thing. And the fifth one was a thing I did at a TV station in Lithuania years ago. And it was called How Breathing Can Relax and Energize You. And that was based on this idea that when when most people relax, they can get very still, very quiet, but they don't breathe. And when they breathe really deep and powerful, they don't relax. And so what I was seeing was that it's that combination of peace and power, of energy and relaxation, which kind of defines the flow state. It defines the zone. And I mentioned box breathing and Mark Devine, and he had been teaching and practicing box breathing in the military and the SEALs for like 15 years when I met him. And so it was all about controlling yourself and controlling the enemy and controlling the situation. And so it was about controlling your breath and controlling your mind and controlling your arousal. Everything's about control in that population, right? And so he had never practiced the soft side of breath work. And so when we started with his session, and I said, okay, stop breathing. And you could see he controls his inhale, he controls his exhale, controls his inhale, controls his exhale. So he was controlling. And so I said, okay, try this. Control the inhale, but for the exhale, just melt and relax. Control the inhale, bring in energy, but for the exhale, just get out of the way and melt and relax. And within 5 minutes, that combination of energizing on the inhale and relaxing on the exhale, and I could see his face change. And then tears started coming. And then he was in this amazing state where you don't know if you're laughing or crying. It was just this ecstatic state. And after the session, when he got up, he put it into words so perfectly. As he was speaking, I thought, why didn't I think of that? That's it. And so what he said was, he said, oh my God, I got it. He said, the control is about power and the relaxation is about peace. And when you combine peace and power, when you combine being totally energized and completely relaxed, you're the most dangerous warrior on the battlefield. You've got it all, you know? And so you're flexible, you can adjust in any moment, you're not fixed in a position, and you're open to intuition, you're sensitive to your environment, and you're in the flow. So that's, you know, so that last file was that thing, because we think we have to give up one. If I want to energize myself, I got to get all ramped up and get my sympathetic nervous system all fired up. And if I want to relax, I have to shift completely into parasympathetic mode and I have to puddle out. But what if you could bring those two things together? What if you didn't have to give up relaxation to get power, and you didn't have to give up energy to relax? What would you be capable of? Well, I think you know, because most people, if you've achieved certain states, so you intuitively or unconsciously or just naturally brought those things together. Like, you know, Stig Severinsen, a good friend of mine, who's got the breath holding record in the world, 22 minutes holding your breath underwater. You can't do that without relaxing. In fact, you have to learn how to relax very profoundly. But when are you relaxing? You're relaxing when the most powerful biological urge you have is terrorizing you. And if you can relax, then you can relax anywhere. So, you know, we use the breathing to stimulate a lot of stress in the system, chaos even, and you practice relaxing into that chaos. And then we get into a very pure, relaxed, sublime state, and you start notching up the breath without losing that state. And you enter into a certain, well, into the zone, into a flow of some kind. And it doesn't matter what you are. If you're an artist, or if you're a musician, or if you're an athlete, or you're a corporate executive, it's going to get translated into whatever you do. So, Yahoo.
Yeah, Yahoo. It's so interesting, because I've been following Mark Devine, and right now he's speaking about self-awareness, right? So you did a great work doing some breath work with him, because obviously his mind completely changed. So Dan,
Yeah.
thank you so much. Before we go, I just want you to talk a little bit about your breath church, because I've followed you Saturday on your online breath church. And can you just tell a little bit about the audience? Tell the audience about the breath church.
Oh, yeah. Well, Breath Church is one of the initiatives that we're doing. One of my star practitioners, Sage in New York, and Pam Gold, she has a place called Hack Fitness. They teamed up also with the person who did the bulletproof coffee thing, his marketing web person. So it's a really great team. And we've created this thing called Breath Lab and Breath Church. And it's just, it's a fun way to introduce breathing, but we go really deep. We're doing real cutting edge stuff. We're bringing in experts and authorities in certain areas, and so we're having great conversations. We're passing on great exercises and techniques, and so that's one of our initiatives. And we have a few happening like that. So, and this coronavirus thing, people are getting accustomed to. You're not going to the gym, you're working out at home. You're not going to the yoga studio, you're doing yoga at home. You're not going to your meditation group, you're meditating at home. And so who knows, maybe coming out of this coronavirus thing, we'll have a new normal. Hey, I've been working at home for 3 months. Why go back to work anyway? Let me go further. So Breath Church is part of that. And you'll be the first one to hear it right now. We're also launching my next really beautiful thing, I think, and it's called the Kitchen Ashram Project.
Wow.
The Kitchen Ashram Project, because I was part of the Prison Ashram Project back in the 70s with Ram Dass and that whole group. That, hey, if you're stuck in prison for 10 years or 5 years, hey, some people volunteer. If you're a monk, you volunteer for that. You're all alone in a cell. So we thought, hey, this is a great chance. If you're stuck in prison in a cell, do some inner work. So I was part of that Prison Ashram Project. And now I'm seeing that this current state of affairs, we're launching something on the Kitchen Ashram Project where, right from your own home, you can become a Buddha. Right from your own home, you can become a yogi master. And in my case, you can become a breathing master. That's the game. Yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much. So I love everything you say. Thank you so much for sharing all those value, all those tips. And I just wish if I have one wish, is that the world take care and be more aware of their breath. So thank you, Dan, for your mission. And then we're gonna have to say goodbye. And thank you, the audience, for following us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're back.
Yeah. So what I just did was I took a sigh of relief. And a sigh of relief isn't a breathing technique. It's a natural breathing response. And what is it? A sigh of relief is an inhale that is twice as big as your tidal volume. It's an inhale that's twice as big as your average breath. And it comes to people about every 5 minutes, about 12 times an hour. The medical studies show that the average person experiences a sigh, which is an inhale twice as big as normal. And that extra expansion is what triggers what we experience as a sigh of relief on the exhale. But the sigh is actually, it's nature making sure that we hyperinflate those alveoli in our lungs regularly. Otherwise, we will lose our respiratory capacity. So nature makes us take a breath that's twice as big as normal, about 12 times an hour. And so that's just for survival. So I teach people to take a sigh of relief and turn it into a conscious breathing practice. Exaggerate it, magnify it, make it theatrical, Shakespearean sigh of relief. Take your time on the inhale. And then when you let the exhale go, don't just let the breath go, let your jaw go, let your neck go, let your shoulders go, let any negative thoughts go, let any limiting beliefs go, let any anger go, let any fear go, let any stress go, let any anxiety go. And you just start with a sigh of relief, but do it like a real technique and practice it. And you'll be surprised what everybody already knows what a sigh of relief is, but people aren't using it consciously. They're not embellishing it. They're not, turning it into a real practice. So that's where I start everybody. There's something practical to do is start with a sigh of relief and meditate on the inhale, track the sensations, You stretch from side to side, front to back, top to bottom. You experience the fullness. And then when you release the breath, don't just release the breath, release whatever else is holding you back. Release whatever else is in your way. Release any tension, release any fear, release any anxiety. And the average person gets really good at this really fast if they just practice a little bit. And here's my practice formula. 10 plus 10 plus 10 times 2. 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes at night, and 10 times during the day for 2 minutes. If you just stop in the middle of what you're doing and just give yourself some sighs of relief with the intention to energize yourself and the intention to relax and use power statements, visualization, imagery, psych yourself up while you're breathing, calm yourself down, you're going to get really good, and 1 or 2 breaths are going to put you right into the zone.
Great. Thank you so much for that exercise. I love it.
Yeah.
So great exercise, something guys to practice on. And stay tuned. Go to Dan Brule's website. What's your website, Dan Brule? Can you just tell the audience?
Yeah, it's breathmastery.com. And on Instagram, it's at Dan Brule Official. I'm also on Facebook, Dan Brule Breath Mastery. It's hard not to find me if you Google breathwork, but I'm at breathmastery.com.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for the exercise, something to practice. Bye, guys.
Yay. Thank you, Audrey.